What's up, people? Today we've got a single man recon, literally a recon in this case. Our objective to proceed about a click, 1 kilometer plus, to the north and observe this target from an elevated position. That's literally the mission brief. So, we have the option, more or less, most of our approach in this case can be direct line. For these first few grids, we're going to have to steer clear of this populated area here. We will hit our linear danger area crossing somewhere in this area, clear that area, commit our linear danger crossing, and then we're going to hoof it for an extended period at a time up to about a grid or two out, and then we're going to stop at that 90 degrees, hook back up and around to our observation, our LPOP, listening observation post area, where if that works for us to complete the objective, then we'll be good to go. If not, we'll break contact. And if for some reason we have to recon and force, we can recon and force. But that's essentially the objective. So, pre-mission prep, we're already mostly in position, but we're going to go ahead and make sure that the rest of our stuff is ready to go. Because once we get going, we're going to make some good time, some good progress. Our weight is decent. It could be lighter, but right now our weight is decent. So that hopefully won't be too much of a factor. And then we will go from there. Alrighty. Let's make it happen. So, a lot of this was going to be through brush. Obviously, that gives us an excellent advantage for concealment. But if you're trying to not make too much noise, avoid obvious walkways. You don't always need to take those. In fact, it's generally best to avoid them. If not in game, then definitely in real life. You'll notice while walking like this that you can hear very little. Your observation capabilities are going to be truncated because of the noise of the brush and the ambient noise and all that other stuff. So what you're going to want to do, and we'll get into that once I get up to closer to the objective here, is one, you want to look around when you can. Two, we're going to do, this is just as good a time to demonstrate this as any, what we call a SILS halt. SILS, S-L-L-S. In this case, in game, it's only S-L-L because you can't smell, but the acronym Stop, Look, Listen, Smell, right? If anyone's ever spent any time outside, especially walking in an area like this, you'll know that over time, your senses are going to shift, and suddenly even the most innocuous noise you would normally make in any other circumstance suddenly becomes the loudest thing on the planet, such to the point where you'll actually start to think that somebody's walking or following you or whatever it is, and then you'll stop and you realize that it's just your clothes or your shoes, or you have a backpack on that's ruffling or whatever it is, and that's what's making the noise, and it's just that your senses have been elevated for the area that you're in. So you want to take that time to observe visually, audibly, especially in game or whatever, or in real life. If you're walking around constantly, you're going to focus or see things differently. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'll crest this hill right here. I'm going to take a few seconds stare, actually let your eyes adjust, take in the world around you. Already I've identified a couple of things. I've got power lines. That's infrastructure. I've got a roadway here. Over there I've got some form of housing. I'm on a crest of a hill right now. So if I go ahead and pull up our map, or in this case, our Blue Force Tracker / ATAK map. I'm going to get into that more of that later at some point, but I might even throw up a photo right now. This is a thing that you can actually get access to as an individual. Militaries use this, law enforcement emergency services use this, but you can access an ATAK on your own for free, either on a phone or even on a desktop. And when people used to say back in the day when games like this came out, and they said, hey, having a map is unrealistic. Not anymore. As a matter of fact, this particular map is actually lower in features compared to the real thing like an ATAK does. Like you said, you saw the photo. I'll throw that up. You'll see what it means. So, we're on this ridge here. There is that, literally a grid away, less than a grid away, there's potential contacts to our east. So we want to keep that in mind. From where we are currently posted, that house is located there, and our roadway is located there. So that's not the same one as this. That may or may not be the same one located right there. If not, then we have another one that we can't see currently. So what we're going to want to do is, as you can see, there's the buildings to our east. There we go. Funny how just a little brush, you're not paying attention, you'll miss the whole thing. So keep that in mind. Again, if you're operating from a PvP perspective, a little bit of concealment is a game changer. Just keep in mind that the way the PvE works, the AI will, if they encounter you or think they know where you are, they will engage any general last known location, and those bushes are not going to help you. And speaking of which, one proximal to the truck nearest to me. In this position, I've only got up. Let's reevaluate. Prone out a bit. Get a second look. That should be a branch or a tree off that second. So we should only have our single target, which we will want to engage before we engage our crossing. Alright, let's do a little more. Confirm that there's no one else over here, as far as we can tell. It's not always conducive. If you're going to glass a area to see what's going on, it's generally conducive to start zoomed out before you zoom in, because you're going to see things differently, and it's very easy to get lost in the magnification. And you will, if you've ever tried to shoot an enemy, AI or otherwise, when you're zoomed in all the way, especially if you want to, like, if you're rocking an ACOG, and how frustrating that can be trying to engage somebody when that's too close, you get lost in the glass trying to find somebody. So defaulting to observing something from one times is generally going to help you out before you then engage with your magnification. Magnification for details and accurate shots, zoomed out for general observation. Alright, so we got our single target. We have not been able to identify any further, so what we are going to do is engage this single. Should have got that in one. But we got him. He's down. We are going to hold position and wait. No audible responses that we can hear. No visual disturbances. I'm not picking up any movement. Go ahead and break off a little bit here. Not going to get distracted by other things, other locations. and I'm going to slowly and cautiously approach. Now, what is our purpose here? We are going to clear this area, but we are also doing effectively what would be considered either a linear danger area crossing with assault, or just an assault through a austere location. One might consider this is actually more or less similar to an ambush, because it's a ambush linear danger area. So one way or the other, we're going to want to be cautious on our crossing. So in this case, we're going to treat this as a partial assault. I've already cleared this area very visually, but there could be even somebody hiding behind that little hutch right there. So we're checking, we're crossing, checking, we're booking it across, but not to the point where we're not going to be able to engage. Okay. We're good. Now that we've got this opportunity, let's go ahead and take a quick peek down that road. Nothing? Okay, we're good. Now we can take the time to do any kind of basic looting. Now, again, we have to consider something here. My objective is a long ways away, so I don't necessarily want to be taking on any more weight. Some of these objects that I can loot off, like the optics for example, I might get 100 out of each, maybe not, but yeah, I'm not really gonna be out too much if I leave those behind. And the other thing to consider is the fact that as far as objectives go, I'm going to make way more money off of the reward for completing the objective anyway, so I should probably focus more on that. It's not really worth the... Again, it's a matter of cost perspective. Do I want... Okay, so we're going to go ahead and proceed and go to exfil from here as quickly as we can. Don't loiter on X's, as we call them. In this case, the ambush or the linear danger area is the X, and the rule of thumb, you ask anyone, military, law enforcement, whatever, the answer is always going to be the same: get off the X. You don't want to stay on that area of action any longer than you have to. Now, in this case, what I am doing is I've just broken más o menos most line of sight with that area, because I've crested over what you call the military crest of the hill. Military crest of the hill, in this case, in this instance, simply put, is when you get over the edge of that hill, I don't need to go all the way down. I just need to go just over enough of the crest where I disappear from view, effectively. But it goes both ways too. If you're ever cresting over the top, your head is going to come into view sooner than you can see them, right? Depending on how aggressive the apex of the hill actually is, right? So just keep that in mind. The crest of the hill works both ways. It will hide you from view, but it also limits your vision, so keep that in mind. And also take the time to appreciate any time you have a elevated position like this, the kind of view it both gives you and the potential to be seen from any number of locations, right? I can see all of these places from where I'm at. It stands to reason that anyone in any of those visible, or for that matter areas that I can see but I can't see completely, might be able to see me. So keep that in mind. And when it comes to concealment, I always like to say that movement is louder than sound. You might not be able to hear someone from far away, but you can definitely see that movement. You might not be able to identify it totally accurately, but your eyes will pick up on something, even if they can't identify exactly what it is. So keep that in mind. Which is also why stopping and sitting still for a hot second can really help you figure out what it is you're looking at, or if there's actually any movement going around. So keep that in mind. So we'll do another halt, and well, would you look at that? We're listening, but we're not looking up. checking our observation here, we are more or less still on a direct line. Now, IRL, you do not utilize, obviously, freaking waypoints on your forehead. You do have, you know, GPSs and phones and such where you can utilize that marker, but it's not something that's generally always staring you in the face. I mean, even a GPS, you have to pick it up to look at it, right? Unless you've got it literally hanging off your freaking forehead, like I said. So that is a thing to think about, but also consider the fact that at a certain point, your technology may fail you. So it's always beneficial at the end of the day to ensure that you have an understanding of how to navigate without technology, right? In the case of land navigation like this, you crunch your numbers, you do your compass action and all that kind of stuff in real life. And then you have your point, and it points to whichever degree or whatever you're going to, whatever. But in terms of short term, you have two things you can use. One thing which would be interesting to see if it's possible to make work in the game is a pace count, which is basically an understanding of when I walk so many steps, that equals so many, you know, meters or yards or foot or whatever. And that's something very, very key to being able to maneuver through long distances effectively. Another thing that you want to do, and this is something you can do in the game more or less, is every so often you pick your direction that you're going, más o menos, and then you pick a visual object that corresponds más o menos with the location you're heading. For example, see that tree right there? I'm going to look at it again. It's it's got the tall trunk there and the one coming off of it, and it's in between those other two trees. Okay, cool. Now, if I were to do this and remove that, there it is. And as you see, I'm not even looking because the sky is currently blotting it out. I'm not even looking at my compass or what have you. But because I've got that visual identified landmark, even in this case it's just a tree, in my peripherals, would you look at that, I'm still on course, even though I'm not even using any of the features that I have available to me. In fact, I can get to where I'm going without even using a marker in this case. But for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to continue to use this at least as an indicator. So we are now approximately 2.5 grids out from the general location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick another marker, and based on the map I'm looking at, again, that's where these trees can be annoying. I'm not necessarily aware of what the terrain like is underneath that canopy. I can't tell. Which is where being able to visually judge distances without a marker is going to come in handy too. Say, for example, see that twisty tree right there? I've got that nice twisty tree with the multiple trunks coming out of it. Okay, so I'm going to work for that. That's also on the edge, top edge of that, or past the top edge of that ridge right there. Also notice I'm starting to deal with more aggressive inclines here, and we all know that the game at a certain point will start to fight me on this one. As a word of advice when it comes to approaching aggressive inclines in this game, like actually aggressive ones, don't try to bunny hop these things. Don't do it, because even a short fall, a very short fall, with any amount of weight will cause double fractures on the legs, and you do that more than once, you're out a splint or two, depending on if you're using the basic ones or the 5-count ones. So just keep that in mind. So there's our marker tree. Now you'll start to notice a few things. For example, this map does not give you any terrain, any elevation indications whatsoever, because when we hit this location right here, look at the sheer height, sheer elevation shift that we're dealing with that we didn't even know, based on that map information, that we were going to be dealing with. Look at how much scale we're dealing with. That's going to give us an advantage, but it's also going to suck if we have to get out of here in a hurry. Yada yada yada. There's all these factors to consider right now. So that's how a lot of pre-mission prep and study can help. But in the case of these maps, if that's the best you got, that's the best you got. And in this case, we walked into... This is probably one of the tallest places in game I've seen so far. And we had no idea, because the information we had didn't give it to us. Maybe on the way in, if you're flying in and the game isn't trying to choke on the way in, you can say, hey, I could get some kind of pre-mission, flyover information, but in this case we didn't have that, so we're going to make it work. So let's go ahead and reevaluate our location. We're more or less heading the way we want to be. We're going to want to continue our now 90-degree angle of attack, as it were, because when you engage these objectives, you generally, once you've found your marker, want to come at them from aggressive 90-degree angles. So you're going to come at it from essentially left or right, or whichever side you come from of the objective, rather than directly on. Now, we're starting to get to the point where I might be able to glass it from here, and I am not able to... Okay, see, even from here you can identify that's probably... Let's see what the... thing maxes out at 4 times magnification, 600 meters, and based on our map indications, we are looking at that location is 340 meters, also minnows. So if I wanted to actually try and make this shot, not that this necessarily is something that we really need to do, because it's not. It's interesting, you can even see his shadow from here, but if I needed to, I could do so from here. So far out, she's not loading in the textures. Alright, well, let's still consider the approach we were going to go for, which should be right about here. And let's go from there. Alright, let's continue, because now at this point what we're going to have to do is 90-degree angles and direct access and all that stuff is great until terrain actually becomes a thing. We have to be able to negotiate our way down this elevation, this ridge line, without getting melted. One way you can do it is, and as you can see, it's starting to slide already, is a draw, what they call it here, in where the two ridge lines, the two ridges basically meet in the middle and create this little miniature valley here. I'm going to use that as a way to descend without messing myself up, and it's generally a faster way down. Go ahead and use what intel we do have. We have guys to the north and one off to the east. Friendlies. So we're going to continue on. Alright, cool. Now we're going to be more or less at our 90 degrees. So we're going to hit our 90 degrees, keeping our eyes open. Head on a swivel, all that fun stuff. And now we have more or less at our general 20 for our observation point. Let's go ahead and, because we know we have friendlies engaged, let's go ahead and escalate a little bit. Keep in mind that we can't just go running in there. Drop our zero down. See if we can get observation on any potential targets. Now, the mission brief specified a ridge. I assume it's actually just specifically referring to this rock face here. Let's go ahead and escalate up. You guys good? What I always say about people not paying attention, right? It's also why you can't run everywhere either. Everyone's always focused on loot and killing things. That's how you generally lose the majority of your gear, is through rushing. Not to say you shouldn't show haste when the time comes, but So now we're checking. Survey from a nearby ridge. In this case, it doesn't give us a better idea of how close we need to be or what exactly we're supposed to observe. So if push comes to shove, and that's not going to cooperate, either we need to get closer, reposition. Let's try this area right here. Now, just because somebody came from here doesn't mean... Cool. In this case, I didn't even have to make visual observation of it, but we did it, so that's going to help tremendously. Alright. In this case, though, if we would like to, it wouldn't hurt to actually do some recon in force, as it were. I'm going to... It would be a fair assessment to believe that these guys just cleared out most of that area. So we're going to go ahead and gather some further intel in but a moment. I'm sure there's no one here that I can see. Let me go ahead and break contact with here, find a slightly better place to be sitting. Get back off the ridge a little bit. Deal with my hydration and food issues. Try to manage our energy needs as best we can. Most likely we're going to need to salvage some food items, because I do have some, but it's mostly the MREs, which those aren't just something you just slam. Alright, so we got our observation access points. Access points include the bridge over there to the east. We could try to work the river itself. Keep in mind that's another flavor of a linear danger area. In some ways it's worse because it's going to make a lot of noise and slow your entry dramatically. We can see from here that there is in fact an open door that might actually feature something we're interested in. So what we are going to do in this case, we're not going to assume anything, but we are going to attempt to make entry. In this case, that was silenced. At least it's appeared to be silent. It's possible that friendly took a shot at me. I'm going to cross immediately. And now we are faced with that same issue I discussed. Now, if the starts to fight you, you have a couple of options. You can try to run up it, but if you are going to do that, come at it from an angle. So run at it like you're running at the edge of it rather than coming at it direct, and you can usually defeat your way in. Alright, so let's go ahead and push. Okay, continuing on. Do a sills real quick. We don't hear any talking. Don't hear any movement. There are no known friendlies in the area. Final check on the weapon. Door frames. Don't ever stop in one. Either stand off or push through, but don't stop in one. That is how you die. Not only is it how you die, but it's probably how all your friends die too. Because you're going to stop in a door frame. You're either going to try to be shooting at somebody, or you're going to be looking at something, or whatever the heck it is you're doing. You stop in the door frame, and then your friend can't get through, or you have somebody behind you, you stop in the door frame, you turn around, try to run away, he's in there, you're in there, and now you're both getting wasted. So, doors, commit, or don't bother walking through. At least as far as breaching a building goes. Oh, they even looted the first aid, that's not normal. Loot those, they usually have a few free items in there. That is a AK hand grip. Okay, so this one is a locked one, so let's consider that. Now, also you can get stuck on doors as well, so just keep that in mind. It's just all the more reason to blitz through them. Push up to this building, because we know for a fact that this is where the one open door was. Okay, we're in. Let's make sure, check. Okay, and then what we'll do, just as a little added coverage, SKS. That is a cell phone. I'm wondering if that might be... Always take note of your environment. In previous videos I've stated this before. I've reconned a place I've never been to before. Identified things that I knew were going to be objectives, and in fact both of them were. Even before I'd ever even seen a mission brief for them. So, just keep that in mind. 545. Sure, I'll take that. Alright, what else? Right, more warehouse buildings to our... Let's go ahead and push. Take a quick peek. We just noticed the body on the ground, body over the ground over here. located another area. That solves our food problem right there. In fact, once I clear this, I can go ahead and utilize that in a second. He's inside. Listen. Notice how these give you visual. I can see through the freaking wood frames, the pallets. Alright. Let's go ahead and grab what we're going to grab. Check what we are going to check. They didn't get everybody, right? Can't assume anything. Okay, Moxifloxin, right? Moxifloxacin, for antibiotics. This is for a yet to be experienced medical situation. Once you unlock the tier 2, I mean technically even before you knock tier 2 lab rat, but especially once you unlock tier 2 lab rat, grabbing Ebalin's basically useless. I mean, if you're hard up for cash and stuff, sure, go for it. But at least, as far as the stuff that becomes available to you at that point, yeah, it is essentially worthless. The gauze, on the other hand, no, I use that stuff all the time. But not so much with the rest of it. Alright, cool. We already hit this one. We know for a fact that there are a couple of more bodies. Or rather, there were. Let me blitz back over here, see if I can observe. Yes, there. Okay, so that's something important to note, right? When I came over here, there were 3 bodies right over here. Meaning that those guys most likely just respawned. So there should be at least 3 more enemies, now more enemies than already were, all floating in the area. Let's go ahead and take care of our food situation. As a matter of fact, well, would you look at that? Only 1, and he's probably sniping them. Okay, let's expedite, but still listening. We're still listening. We're still listening, still looking. There's one. We broke contact, and I can hear very briefly somebody else off to my right. Now keep in mind, so as you can see right there, I got a little lost in the glass again. That guy was able to get a straight shot, a couple of straight shots. You can see that very small gap in between those 2 posts where he's able to just step out just behind cover and concealment, get a couple of shots off. We'll ignore the fact that it was AI firing from the hip and he managed to get me up there. Bullets are bullets, right? But I was a little like I said, lost in the glass, and I was also standing exposed out in the open. Just because you're in a structure or you're proximal to some object doesn't mean that you're actually in cover any more than hugging a wall actually means you're in cover either. So make sure that you're taking full account of your surroundings all the time. And if you're going to engage, just because you see, and I see this happen a lot in gaming, but hopefully not too much in real life, but in gaming, where people will instinctively, as soon as they see an enemy, engage immediately, and that's not the way you want to operate, obviously. So, if at all possible, if you have time, use that time. Know your moment when it's time to engage and execute on whatever plan you might have, even if it's a split second. But if you have time, you got to utilize that. Otherwise, you're going to get caught out, and it only takes 1 or 2 lucky bullets to end the problem, AI or no AI. So, other than that, make sure that you're taking the time to study up on the area you're going to be entering, whether it's long distance or very tight quarters. If you can take the time to research your area of engagement, your mission area, that's going to do you huge benefits before you go in there. And like I was talking about before with the ATAKs and all that other gear, obviously the game is going to limit your ability to do that to a certain degree. There are other maps and stuff that you can use online that'll get you a little more greater detail, but it also depends on how much you actually care about I don't want to say spoilers per se, but how many surprises you actually want to have versus whether or not you're using it as just a straight training tool. So keeping all that in mind, take the time, plan out your moves, and if you do encounter a situation, whether it be enemy forces or a particular area that you thought was going to be one bay but it turns out to be another, that's your opportunity to learn how to adapt on the fly. Just because something changes rather rapidly doesn't necessarily mean you don't have time to think about it, have time to kind of plan things out. And if you can recognize that moment or two to take that time to actually figure things out, take that time if you've got it. And as always, once you get to that point, you do execute, go for it, and make sure you commit.